Yeah, so the executive order on immigration, well, it's problematic in a number of different ways. It's problematic if you look at some of the cases that have come out on this. It's problematic both in terms of due process, that the order was just simply, we're coming out with this order today and we're effectively banning everybody on this day, and it was complete chaos. Nobody had due process because supposedly there was an opportunity for waivers to be allowed back in, but there was no process for those waivers. There was no notice, there was no hearing, and so there was lots of due process problems with the order. But there was also the problem that President Trump during his campaign, had promised this to be a Muslim ban. And so when the order comes out, it's a little bit hard for him to argue that it isn't a Muslim ban when in fact it has this impact on majority Muslim countries. So if he wouldn't have said anything in the run-up to his election and about Muslim bans, then perhaps the order would have been fine, and it would have been something that the courts would have deferred to. But since you have this sort of history of a biased or bigoted opinion about this being a Muslim ban, and him going to Giuliani and trying to figure out a way to make it less unconstitutional but still give him the ban that he would like, it's hard to sort of overcome that presumption of bias or animus towards a religious group. So those are some of the biggest problems with his ban. But if people have particular questions about particular litigation on it, I'd be happy to talk about it too, because there's problems with the cases in Washington with regards to standing and other exciting constitutional issues.
Actually, I think it would be great if you could give a little bit of perspective on that. I think that might be helpful for our audience.
Well, one thing that people notice is that there was some strategy about where these lawsuits would be brought. And the lawsuit brought by the Attorney General of the state of Washington was brought by that Attorney General with the support of a number of other Attorney Generals in Washington, partly because it was the Ninth Circuit, right? It was a friendly, more liberal circuit generally for these sorts of things. But there's this question, well, why does the state of Washington have standing to sue to try to get an injunction to stop the president from this executive action when it's, banning immigrants and refugees from, traveling into the United States? And the argument there, if you go through this kind of classic standing material, that the state's arm, its universities, have tried to recruit students. They have students, they have professors, and there's a number of cases where universities or schools have been able to sue on behalf of their students if, in fact, the ban affects or has a negative impact. So they don't actually, the University of Washington isn't necessarily raising its own constitutional rights. It's raising the rights of these permanent residents, immigrants, refugees, but it's doing so based on the fact that the violation of their rights actually causes a discrete and particular harm to the state of Washington, right? And that's for some people a little bit hard to understand.